All right, welcome back to Buffalo Plus. Mike Catalana. I'm Jenna Cottrell. Dan Fates with the Veterans Day off. Mike, Mitch Trubisky coming to the Bills. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, is it Mitch? Is it Mitchell? Right? Because I think he told everybody to say Mitchell. So we'll start out with Mitchell. We'll probably slip back into calling him Mitch. I love that it's an upgrade. And I think he plays a game much more in a similar fashion. I didn't say he was Josh Allen, but he plays that type of game. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who's dealt with being a high draft pick. You know, he was number 2 overall. I remember being at that draft, and that was a stunner. But he has that sort of, in common with Josh Allen, because Josh was a surprise top 10 pick. Yeah. So, they have that together. I think there's a sense of relief for a guy like Trubisky going to somewhere like Buffalo, be ready if they need him, and trying to rebuild his career and then try to go somewhere else after that. So I like it as an upgrade. I think he's a better option if they need him to play than Matt Barkley was.
I was just shocked at that was someone that I just didn't have on the Bills' radar, which now, like, going through it and Brandon Beane explaining the fact that it's a luxury to have a guy that has that much starting experience. Did you think it was even someone on the table for the Bills before the Buffalo made this move?
That's really interesting, because I don't think they wanted a rookie back there, or even like Jake Fromm, a guy they drafted and didn't get an opportunity. I think they wanted somebody that couldn't play. And I think if they didn't feel it was someone who really was an upgrade on Barkley for what Barkley did bring to the team, I don't know if they make that move. But they get him relatively cheap for 1 year. They bring him in, and I think they're thinking to themselves, hey, if something happens, and I love the point being made. Sure, this team isn't as good with Mitch Trubisky playing. See, I already went back to Mitch. With Mitch Trubisky or Mitchell Trubisky playing. But you may be in a stretch of 2 to 3 weeks. You may be in a stretch of a month. You may be, for one game, half of the game. Like, you don't know. So it's not like, oh, we're fine if something happens to Josh Allen. No, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. But look at what happened with Kansas City this year. Yeah. Right? Mahomes goes out, and they're still able to find a way to get a win. So keeping their season going. So, I think this is a team that you made. It's like they're fine-tuning here a little bit, right? Yeah. That's a luxury pick, I think somebody called it. I don't really think of it that way. I think they're looking legitimately. It's a 17-game schedule, it looks like, for next year. Yeah. Let's have another guy who can really help us.
And Brandon Beane talked about the style of play that we know Josh has, and that is a very physical style. So to have someone that has that starting experience behind him, and it's not like you're going to throw Jake Fromm into the mix after having Matt Barkley leave. So it does make sense. I would think, I actually kind of do think it's a bit of a luxury because of all the experience that Mitchell Trubisky does have. But again, it's something that, and Brandon Beane said this, we want Josh to play all the games. We want him to be the starter. We want him in the playoff game. So I think going forward, it's just something that I did not expect, but also at the same point now from, having the opportunity to let it sink in, it's like, I totally understand. But we know Brandon Beane was a very busy man. We know, we got to talk to him and Sean McDermott on Thursday. What do you make? Because he touched on his idea on trades. And we know we've heard the Bills be in talks or, talking about Zach Ertz. What did you make of the situation that Brandon talked about in terms of trades?
They do spread some narratives in many ways through the media, right? The Eagles do it all the time. I mean, Howie Roseman's trying to build up a market for Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is a really good football player. Dan calls me the fan of his, the head of his fan club. I just think the guy can really play. I see Kyle Rudolph getting a 2-year deal. Cook is 2 years older. Like, these guys are good players. Zach Ertz is an elite pass catcher. He's not Kelsey. I see people writing that. Really? He's not Travis Kelsey. Well, there's the big, scoop of the day.
That's a hot take.
But I'm saying is this guy can really play, and he's a great team guy, and he had one down year due to a injury and a lot of issues in Philly. But that being said, what did Beane say? Oh, yeah, and he's right. Yeah, teams have a guy. Perfect example with the Eagles. They get the story out there, they're looking to move them. They get the story out there that they don't need to, which they really don't at the moment. But at some point, they're going to want to use that cap space, right? And so do they wait? Do they cut them? Do they trade them? Okay, they've gotten past this deadline. They want to make a move. But my point was, I thought the Eagles had a market. I guess it's still there. but it's dwindling because these teams are signing players. So when Brandon says, yeah, there's players, they got a player, they're throwing them out there. They're saying, what would you give me for them? Now, people think these are like, I'll give you a 5 and that's it. No, they have conversations. And what do you think Beane says to Howie Roseman? Hey, get back to me. Get back to me if you got something. Get back to me, let me know, right? Or I'll let you know if we whatever. And then they actually worry about it's like when you're talking to your friends sometimes. Sometimes you don't want to give something away because you don't want to make them feel bad or you feel funny or you feel whatever. Yeah. So it's sort of like they don't bring it up. Like, oh, I didn't call you. Oh, you called me about Zach Ertz? Maybe I'll give you a 6th round pick. So that goes on. At some point, Howie Roseman's going to save face and get some form of a draft pick for Zach Ertz. Mm-hmm. I just think he'd really help this Bills team at the right price. Yeah. And I think he's worth a later draft pick.
Yeah. I mean, we shall see because like you said, I feel like the tight end market has kind of exploded. But because of that means that there's not as many suitors for Ertz and depending on what the Eagles want to do. What was another one of your takeaways from today? Because we did get to hear from Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. And I'm just curious because I have my own. I want to hear yours.
They really did talk to Gronk.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, they wanted a tight end. And if you think about it, Gronk to the Bills is phenomenal. Like, if Brady wasn't playing and Gronk still wanted to play, I mean, he's a Buffalo guy. Like, he would embrace that. And I'm telling you, Bills fans, you would love Gronk.
Completely.
It would be total love because he's Gronk and he's from Buffalo. And he grew up going to Bills games. Like, he's that guy. He just happened to beat your head in for a decade. But they did talk to him. And I think what did he say? It would have been an upset if he didn't go back to Tampa. Yeah. Because Tommy's there. And they had that AT&T call trying to work things out. So that was just one of the things. Just the idea that they basically confirmed that they talked to Gronk. What did you have?
Well, I think there was 2 that kind of stuck out to me that were just little like tidbits that I thought were interesting. Because I've been asked quite a bit about Josh Allen's extension on some various podcasts and stuff. And Brandon Beane talked about how there's a lot going on right now and they haven't really started the discussions yet in terms of renegotiating his next deal. But that is expecting, May or later summer to kind of get the ball rolling on that, which I think a lot of people had some questions about because obviously, you want to lock up Josh for the long term, but I know some people were interested in that. Right. And then also it was about the run game and how they feel confident. I thought it was interesting because they talked about, we believe we have the pieces on this roster, and they talked about Devin, they talked about Zach Moss. And then later in the comment, Brandon Beane was like, but we're always going to add competition through free agency as well as the draft. And I just thought that was funny because I was seeing on Twitter people tweeting like, we believe the pieces are on this roster in terms of the run game. But I feel like I didn't see the follow-up of like, competition through free agency. And
well, of course. And not here for this. Well, right now, those are the guys they have on the team. Like, and if you get the opportunity to add a player, it changes things, right? Depending on what was out there. So, that part, I always think that, look, they didn't really change the offensive line. And they haven't changed the running backs. And they've added another wide receiver in Sanders and may get a pass-catching tight end. So I don't think they're going to become a running team. But both of them keep saying they need to run the ball better. So something is going to change in those circumstances. But I find that to be just a smart GM saying, we're happy with the guys we have now, but you never know. Something could change. So
I liked that. It's a way to make sure that you cover all your bases, but not also piss off the guys that you have in-house. And I will say too, they talked about, the addition of Emmanuel Sanders. How I loved how McDermott said, we want to keep our fastball. The wide receiver core is so important to this team. They wanted to add in a veteran like Sanders. I guess I thought today when we heard from Beane and McDermott, it was a very measured approach to this offseason.
Yeah, bringing back your own guys, making upgrades to guys who've been around a little bit in different ways. And especially, you know, when you look at, you try to compare Sanders to John Brown. Think about when John Brown came in, he was the number one guy. And now, a few years later, he's, you know, the 3 or the 4 guy on this team would be. And so you take a guy like Sanders who's been around this league. I tell you what, take a moment and look at who's been throwing the ball to Emmanuel Sanders in his career. He had a little bit of time with Drew Brees. The rest of the time, it's not impressive. You know, I mean, especially over the last like 6 years, certainly after he got started in his career. So you look at the last few years, but being the guy that he's going to be on this team, which is probably the 3rd option or more, I think he'll be great in that role because they have him in the right spot. So that's upgrading. Just like we said with the quarterback, like it's okay to have Matt Barkley in 2018 and 19, but in 20, yes, because they didn't really need him. And I think they've always sort of looked that way. And so you do this with Trubisky and then you see what happens.
Yeah, constantly making those little upgrades and seeing where you can improve. All right, we'll wrap up here. We'll have plenty more coverage on Buffalo Plus. If you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe. We appreciate all the comments as well. For Mike Catalana, I am Jenna Cottrell. Dan Fates will be with us later on this week, but thanks for watching. We will see you next time.